Hey guys, welcome to Metalworks. So we're gonna go over how to play this map on demo, just what the holds look like, positioning looks like, objectives, whatnot. Finish things off with some trap locations, as we have been doing for all these map reviews. So anyway, we'll get started with the rollout, and the rollout's pretty important for demo. So for starters, your first stick, there's a couple options. What a lot of the older demos do is come out through garage here, and they'll throw their first sticky there and just jump across. Not like that. Ideally, you land in the doorway, and in some cases even past the shutter, because your pocket soldier can roll out to that shutter before you get there and hold it open for you. I would recommend trying to avoid fall damage for reasons I'll explain later. So you can do that first stick. It's not too bad. You have to like have it hang off a bit so you can jump off the other side, and it's like right-handed, so it can be a little awkward when you're moving, but with some practice it's not too bad. Or you can do what I tend to do and I find easier, which is just throw your stick here and then basically strafe around, right? I find that quite easy. But yeah, they're both fine. You do see in some cases, like demos will go for like a ramp slide here. I don't know if you can actually do that in one stick or if they actually use two. You can maybe hit the ramp slide there. I'd recommend either of these though. And then once you land in or past the shutter, then it's just a case of using your sticks to get to house. So one minor note about this is the fact that you know, the sooner that you shoot your sticky, the sooner you can jump off of it. And I do want to be very particular about this Metalworks rollout, because this is kind of like the arms race of demo rollouts. Because the demo that shows up first is at a big advantage in my opinion, and you very much like to show up first. So yeah, focusing on being fast on Metalworks rollout is really important. And that's why when you get to house, you can either stay healthy, get this pack, and then roll out to whichever door you're trying to go, whether you want to go choke or through main. It's up to you, and I'll talk about the difference in a moment. Or you can use an extra sticky in here. And if I have the health, and this is why avoiding that crater damage back at last is so important, or just in general, I suppose you could crater off this jump if you took it weird. And that's why your health is really important, because if you use this extra sticky, you're only gonna be like 20 HP getting this pack a lot of the time. So you show up weaker but faster, which on metal is oftentimes a valuable trade-off, but it is up to you. So yeah, you can come choke or come main. So choke has a couple advantages. So for starters, you can shoot either door from either door, but choke is, it lends itself, all right, it lends itself more towards locking out main because it's faster to get to than main. So if both demos have the exact same speed rolling out to, let's say like here, then the demo that grabs this pack and goes choke is going to show up faster than the demo who grabs the pack and goes through main. So that already gives you a big advantage, because you either get a lot of damage on that demo coming through, which for starters, they're not going to be necessarily too healthy either, like even if they don't use that extra sticky. And that's going to force them to be very passive, and then you can get really good spamming and really good positioning. Or, yeah, I mean, choke is good for that. And of course, if the other demo rolls out choke, then you can get spam on them as well, and it's still important to show up earlier than them if you can. But this is a nice position because most of the time the entire team will come out through here as well, so you can get reliable spam on them. It's uncommon for an entire team to roll out choke, and if they do, it's because they're playing a really fast mid, which I suppose I can talk about right now. You can play choke just for that initial spam, and play to rotate over to your team, playing closer to Valley. Or you can roll out choke with your team with the intention of doing a fast bomb, in which case, yeah, you'd be looking to actually take this positioning on point. This kind of positioning on point is going to be very dangerous if your team is not double bombing and walking with you to support you. It's very easy to get spammed out and die. So if your team is with you trying to play that fast bomb sort of mid where you just play left side, then yeah, absolutely, you can be looking to get aggressive there. Just do a ton of damage to all the players walking through these doors and standing here. But if not, then you might want to be a little more measured. You can be playing more on catwalk, trying to get spam, whatnot. But ultimately, you want to get over to your team so you can actually get that healing support, because you are going to be very isolated if your team's over here and you're still left side. And there are some cases actually where I've seen invite demos like get this spam and then rotate through house even. Which of course is going to be worse than rotating outside of the house a little sooner in my opinion. But still. Yeah, some things to look out for as well is it's possible for a demo to be trapping off your rotate. Like, it's not that rare to have maybe just a couple stickies in this general area. And if you're not paying attention to that and drop down, then you might be, depending on the amount of spam you've taken, that might just kill you. So, yeah, you don't want to linger left if your team's playing right. And it is nice to meet up with them if you roll out choke. Now, you don't have to roll out choke, and you can roll out main. And when you roll out main, of course, you'd like to show up earlier than the other demo. And from my experience, if a demo uses an extra sticky in-house, then they actually show up faster through main than a demo who didn't use that extra sticky shows up through choke. So if you use that extra stick and the other demo doesn't, then you can actually flip the dynamic where you lock them out and get initial damage on them. But basically, you're looking to spam these two doors. Metalworks mid can be a very awkward mid for demos, because while there's really good spam opportunities in my opinion, and you can do a lot of damage, it's kind of unintuitive. Like, there's the easy stuff, like, you know, shooting on the crate or something, or if they're on top of the point, you can be shooting that. But outside of that, the point kind of obscures you, and you're usually playing on the low ground. And also a lot of demos like gravitate towards this positioning, which, unless your team is here, which your team probably shouldn't be, they should probably be more here, you're quite vulnerable. So a lot of demos will like kite back if they're weak to this corner where it's actually the opposite corner where their beam is at and they can't get supported, rather than actually playing with their heals. So that's an important thing to consider. But as far as like spam goes as well, it can be hard to kind of tell because of how obscured things are. So it's important to either spam through the point or over it. And I mean, if I just shoot like some intuitive stickies like that, you can see these are landing like pretty much where a player would like to be standing. So there's still definitely good spam opportunities. But you actually have to kind of be familiar with the map and have a good feel for those stickies shooting over obstacles to get it, as well as like taking your timings to like peek things and get vision through whatnot. Another important thing is the walk up. So this is a very decisive maneuver, is taking this high ground positioning. Of course, there can be like guys choke or whatever, and their demo is going to want to spam you and is going to be more than capable of spamming you. So you have to be careful about when you choose to walk up. You can win mids without ever walking up. And in some cases, like during a commit bomb, for example, like you're double bombing, you might actually want to be getting aggressive under the point even. But walking up is basically what you're trying to do when you're trying to finish the mid, right? If you have a pick or something, or you have good positioning, then walking up on top of the point is a fantastic tool for just getting way more nuclear damage on these players and potentially even shooting into Valley as they're leaving, or just shooting them in the doors that they're trying to leave and whatnot. I'm saying whatnot a lot this video. Whatever. So yeah, the walk-up is something to consider. And the walk-up is something you want to spam as well. If you see players, like this is just a normal position to play, and you have a perfect little window to see if any players are trying to walk up, and very easy to be shooting that and focusing that. So normal mid stuff applies to Metalworks, being, you know, you want to be controlling height. The height over there is not as important, but just a wayward sticky, just make them a little less comfortable, can be nice. But especially like on top of the point. If their demo, if you're like playing this positioning and their demo is still anywhere up here, like absolutely spam him off of that. As well, like if there's players here, like these guys are very imminent threats, so you want to be absolutely controlling that space. But yeah, as long as you get established on a Metalworks mid, it's not as bad, but it is especially early on, it's so easy to die first on metal mid as a demo, and that's a problem that a lot of newer demos have with the mid. It just feels very unintuitive. It can be hard to get spammed through and over the point, but as long as you're playing the good positioning and playing to shoot past or over the point, and as long as you actually show up quickly, then it should be good. Now, if you're getting locked out, for example, like their demo shows up first and there's a couple sticks here, you can either clear that and get through, in which case you're probably only eating one sticky or something, or just go backdoor and try to reapproach from Valley. It might be giving them the impetus to walk forward and try and take more space, but then you should focus on just spamming them off of that. And usually the way things are paced, like they're not going to have as much team support at that time, so it shouldn't be too problematic. At least far less problematic than you just trying to muscle your way through and eating a ton of damage or potentially dying. So yeah, don't feel too scared to rotate through doors. But if you're repeatedly getting locked out, then it might be time to switch things up and maybe play to roll out choke and rotate over, or show up faster with a faster rollout, maybe using that extra stick or something. Okay, anything else about Metalworks mid? Not that I can really think of. So if that's the case, we'll talk Disad last. Disad last is a little weird. I'm still not really sure where to kite, honestly. But yeah, Disad last, you can really be playing left side point or right side point. Honestly, they're both okay. You, of course, want to have the point trapped. This point is not tiny, but I tend to put 5 stickies on it and get away with that and have 3 stickies elsewhere, which I'll talk about traps that I like to use on last when we get to that section. But yeah, if they use through main or the left side or shutter or anything in this area, then yeah, you want to be kiting right. A lot of the time, you're okay to walk out right side like this, in which case you'd be trying to play your post in this region where you can of course be denying the point here. You can even be shooting on bridge and doing whatever. If they try to cross, then yeah, you might have to back up, but you'd be looking at potentially, it's hard to cross behind the point with a ad push into last on metal, assuming you have a gun and everything, all the stuff that slows them down. So maybe think about them potentially being out of position when the Uber ends in front of your spawn, and you might be able to get some value there. But by and large, just kite to the opposite side. Likewise, if they use right side, this is where things get scary because they can be crossing in front of the point, in which case going to bridge gets you killed. But they might be going behind the point, in which case, backing up towards garage or backing up towards the spawn is going to get you killed. So you kind of have to identify which direction they're trying to go with their Uber to inform you on where to kite, because basically you're just trying to avoid the Uber and not die, right? But for a left side post, yeah, bridge is a very comfortable place to be, and this general area is quite nice. Yeah, so that's kind of the positioning for Disad last. Just normal Disad last stuff applies of you wanting to primarily focus on the point after the kite is done. Now, Metalworks last is a little small, so you can get reliable direct damage on players. So if you feel that your team has enough solid positioning that the point is not going to be a primary concern, then yeah, by all means, you can be looking for kills and damage on players that are still in or bridge or whatnot. You might not have to just sit around holding your traps on point. It is up to you. But yeah, let's talk about evens on last. So the evens on last hold is typically gun on the crate, dispenser here, and you're going to need that ammo, trust me. And you as a demo are just going to be playing in the pit pretty much. Your main job is shutter, of course. But this is the last teams tend to snipe into, so this is kind of the anti-sniper hold. Typically, if you know they don't have a sniper, well, the non-specifically anti-sniper hold would be... So weird that... I never really noticed that this is just poking through the grate. It's the wrong color. That's strange. So... blowing up my train of thought. You might be playing like a medic back here, and you'd be playing more bridge and playing more to spam this and peek this stuff directly. I wouldn't peek the shutter, but you can peek into right lobby and spam into it. But the try-hard hold is definitely with the gun here, and the heals here, and you here. And you can still be doing those things if you want. But if you know there's a sniper trying to peek shutter, and you can actually spot through this thing, and I don't think you can be shot through it, you can just be spamming this out without even peeking it from the floor. This shutter sucks so much for demo because you can see all these sticks. A lot of them are just right up against that shutter. The space that you can open it from is actually so far away that you can safely peek this shutter without even being in any danger of these sticks. So while, yeah, you kind of have to still trap it, sort of, you can primarily focus on just shooting through the shutter when they open it, so those sticks actually land deeper and can get direct damage. But it's a very loose door to try and hold, so that's part of why the anti-sniper hold just doesn't like to position anyone in this sightline, because it's very easy to peek pretty safely. So yeah. And of course you do play to rotate. So if there is right pressure, it's very rare that right pressure actually materializes in too much, because, you know, a soldier here can just shut everything down. And then left pressure is a little more common. And of course you can just rotate over to lock that down. This is a nice little sink angle to potentially catch a pick on someone or trap them in and help your team kill them. And you can be doing that from above or below the bridge. Although you have to be careful about someone peeking shutter during this, because you are not protected by the gun, which is over there. But yeah, you pretty much just rotate to where the pressure is. Pretty straightforward. And kind of a cozy little hold. Not a lot for you to do, honestly. If they don't pressure left side, then yeah, you kind of just are playing reload simulator, keeping anyone from walking through shutter. So yeah, that's evens on last. Now let's talk about pushing into 2. Pushing into 2, you either are going to be drying through right side, where you of course have to watch out for everything being trapped and the bombs and everything that you have to watch out for every time that you dry push. But it's just a matter of getting through after your teammates clear the traps. And most of the time teams are playing to leave house, and you can just be spamming that out during this. Because remember, object permanence, that doorway still exists even when it's obscured by this fence, so you can by all means still be shooting into it and damaging those players and making the spam less successful. But also on the flip side, you have to look out for their demo doing the same to you. But yeah, this is kind of the designated dry push door. As far as a pop through goes, you can pop through right lobby. It's not horrendous. But as far as a designated pop through door, I think shutter is a little better. And like all shutters, I think as a good rule of thumb, you lead on the scout and have the demo put a stick on the shutter preemptively, and then you can det that the second your scout peeks. So if there are stickies on the shutter, that their demo is just going to immediately det when they see it open. Your Uber doesn't get juggled and ruined by getting knocked back by those stickies. And then when your scout gets through, then you can bomb behind and try and catch people. Now this is, in my opinion, a very, very chaseable door. Because a lot of teams, you know, this is actually a common trend I'm noticing for a lot of different holds, is that, you know, teams play this door as if this door is the exit, right? And then once they're through, they're out. But not really. And oftentimes they actually have to get past this line or this line to truly get out. And even then, like if you're landing here, you can still be shooting into choke, for instance. So I'm a big fan of chasing house with a pop through Uber like that, assuming I don't get like juggled or something. If it's fast enough, then yeah, by all means, peeking into this, you can potentially just wipe teams. And that's something you and your scout should be on the same page about, because obviously you don't want to split up. And of course, if they're like, they're not gonna always be there, like they might be playing to leave Valley or playing on the point and caught or something like that. So, you know, be intelligent with your Ubers. But figured I'd mention chasing house, and don't overcommit as well. Like peeking into it is oftentimes good enough, but like past this, just play the point. you don't have to really overchase trying to get too much. It is a flip-flop, and that's totally fine. Don't just get super out of position and give everything up just because you're trying to secure that med pick at all costs. But yeah, that's pushing out of last. So let's talk now about dis add on 2. So dis add on 2, you could be playing to leave Shutter with your combo, or you could be playing to leave right lobby. Sometimes alone, sometimes with your combo. Right lobby, if you're alone, of course, just be careful that you don't get chased and don't take a ton of damage either. But other than that, it's pretty simple. The spam is not fantastic, nor are the traps fantastic. Metalworks is actually one of those maps where it's really easy to get really low damage on demo. Like, it's not uncommon to get sub 200 damage, depending on the situation, just because, like, a lot of the time the traps are trash and the disad is trash. So if you're forced to play disad a lot, you're just not gonna get much damage. But anyway, yeah, you're just looking for all the things you look at or look for on disad, being, you know, spam damage on the med or anyone protecting the med, as well as having those traps up before they actually push. But pretty simple. You're just playing to leave wherever. Now, as far as even Ubers on 2 go, generally demos play to watch Valley, and that's kind of the go-to pressure door for teams. And oftentimes I do rotate over to, like, in front of right lobby and play on the point. Now, you have to be careful if your combo's over there and you're here, because you are a potential bomb target, and like a classic bomb that teams will do all the time is to high bomb through Valley and I suppose Alley. I just use them interchangeably because I consider this Alley and then this Valley, but whatever, who cares. But you do have to look out for that. And some teams will rotate their heals over to right lobby to support their demo if the other team's pressuring point. So there's, you know, some versatility for how you approach the situation. But yeah, you're just looking to spam people out, prevent them from actually walking up and contesting the point, and just spam out the pressure so that the sack is just a solo soldier sack and ineffective. Typically, House is going to be watched by your soldier, though I suppose you could switch things up and watch House as a demo and have your soldier watch Alley. But most teams do prefer the demo spamming Alley. Honestly, yeah, no, it's probably fine. But yeah, what else about... I don't know if there's much about the evens. So as far as counter sack goes, most of the time counter sack, you're going to be dropping down and going Valley. This can be trapped, so you have to look out for that. This can be trapped as well, so just look out for traps. But this actually is pretty solid spam. You know, hitting people on the point, and you can be shooting over the crate, of course, to be hitting players in choke. And yeah, it's not bad pressure at all. Approaching Valley and getting that spam. And then, you know, when the sack is sent, you just retreat and then walk up the point, and you're happy. So one thing that does really define Metalworks for demo is that, especially from this mid to second stalemate, very long rotation times, as you'll notice, because, you know, dropping down and walking all the way over to mid takes a long time, and going back takes a long time as well. You could be faster if you pressured House, but the House pressure is just gonna be, I'd say generally worse, although this angle is not, it's not terrible, all things considered. But also, you have to keep in mind that your combo is more than just you, and your scout can actually, like, contribute meaningfully to the fight in this kind of geometry, whereas if they're just stuck in House spawning a door, not so much. But anyway, most teams do prefer to pressure Valley for their counter sack. Okay, what else? I think that's it for evens, so we'll talk about pushing into mid. Now, you can push House. Very trappable and very easy for a projectile class to kind of mess you up as a team. But it is a area you can push through. And even going choke, like, this is not a horrendous dry push door. You have to clear Batman, of course. You have to clear Batman anytime you push. But that's more of a scout thing, I suppose. But anyway, gives you nice high ground, gives you a lot of vision. Far enough away from the doors they're planning to leave. Not too bad. Now, House does not make for a bad pop through either. and just dropping down and popping through here, you might just catch players and choke. Not uncommon whatsoever. And this is actually a great pop-through door. Now, you have to watch out for the vision that they have as well, because, of course, they can see into it a little bit. So that is why I kind of routed the way I did. If you just walk down, you're already seen at this point, so they know you're here and might be pre-kiting. And then by the time you actually place the stick and whatnot, they might... Oh, there it is again. You might scare them out before the Uber even gets popped, versus, you know, denying them vision for as long as possible. You know, minor optimization to increase your odds of catching players. And you don't have to pop through after pushing house. And if you want a less spam heavy, potentially safer from sticky traps option, then you can go underpass to backdoor and pop through. And what's nice about this is that if a player is like deep spotting Valley or something and sees you guys coming underpass, this is like traditionally kind of a dry push route, so they might be expecting the dry push only for you to suddenly just appear in house using through, which is nice. But as I was saying, yeah, this is a nice dry push area as well. You're just getting similar spam as the counter sack, just trying to pressure those people out, spam people off of height, and then of course when you get this newfound space, then you lock stuff out as you do every time you dry push a point as a demo man. So yeah. Now let's talk about disad on mid. Disad mid, you pretty much play to leave choke, generally speaking. And yeah, if they're trying to dry push, then you can be spamming them out. And in some cases you can even be playing here and be fine leaving through main rather than choke. But playing to leave house is solid. And then, yeah, pretty straightforward. You just want to have those traps up before they push. And there are good traps in this hold, which I'll cover later. And the spam's not terrible either if they try and dry push Valley. Okay, so that's that. Now let's talk about evens on mid. And again, like with defending 2, pushing into 2, or pressuring into 2, very long rotations, because you're going to be going from the point all the way over to alley to pressure. And when you're pressuring alley, you of course have to look out for traps. You have to look out for the high bomb, because teams will aggressively high bomb even before you've sent your sack here, because this is just a fantastic bomb. And if you catch players in this corner without them seeing you, then you might just like drop a med or get a pick or something. So you have to be looking out for that, but you're looking to just spam out players, hit the demo on point, just get damage on players. If there's soldiers on height, scouts on height, shoot them. You can absolutely be shooting all the way over by Shutter where the combo is going to be playing, maybe get damage on the medic. From my experience, the spam here is kind of one-sided. I feel like I get way more reliable spam onto the point from alley than I do as a demo spamming out players in alley. Maybe that's just a personal thing, but I much prefer pressuring into 2 rather than denying the pressure into 2. But yeah, just pressuring alley and then backing up. Now, in some cases, this is actually a hold I bomb out of because it's just such a long rotation time. And I much prefer having some traps up in Valley, because Valley has good trap spots, than just waddle all the way back. And by the time I'm even here, the other team's already kind of knocking on the door. So something to consider. That long rotation time, of course. You definitely do not want to be caught transitioning from the sack to counter sack positioning. But speaking of counter sack positioning, you can, if you have underpass spotted or trapped, you can spot it from here before rotating back to the point. But yeah, you can be playing here and then kite back the aggression to here, depending on how much space they're taking. But you're mostly just playing on the point and towards choke for that counter sack pressure, just trying to get damage on those players pressuring so that, again, they can't get effective pressure in with their sack. Okay, I think that's it for evens. Let's talk about pushing into second. Now, this is a pretty straightforward flowchart. If you want to use through, then house is a great place to do that, and this is a classic example of a pogo demos will go for, and a pretty solid one at that. Because you're just trying to catch players that are leaving Shutter, and that's usually where the combo is going to be leaving. So yeah, straightforward. Oftentimes kind of a fast transition sort of door, or a slight add kind of door. Because on the flip side, alley is quite dryable. And this is kind of the designated dry push door. Not really much of a door, I suppose, but yeah, you're just looking to spam players out. You know, their combos Shutter, a stick or two, they're going to be out of Shutter. Or they're going to be exceptionally weak and wish they were out of Shutter. You have to look out for traps and whatnot, but yeah, just approach the point, lock stuff out, and you're happy. In some cases, you might have to, like if Ubers are thinning to the point where it might not be as much add anymore, you do have to look out for the combo rotate right lobby, take an exchange on point. So a lot of the time, if I have Shutter locked out, then yeah, I do want to lock out this door as well, just so that's not an option for them. Just a minor thing. And of course, they can be peeking a sniper on this angle, which you have to look out for. But not going to be super common if you're dry pushing. I don't know. Look out for it. You can you can't really spot it through the window. Why not? I don't know why that's obscured. Whatever. So now let's talk. Well, underpass is another door. This is also a potential like use through area. This is, in my opinion, more suited to a double scout. But you could theoretically like pull off some type of pogo in to bomb in, but I do think it's more suited to a double scout, in which case you'd be playing a different door, probably house, and just baiting it pretty hard. Just playing with your soldier as the Uber does whatever it does if it gets picks in the chase or whatnot. Oh, there it is again. So yeah, that's pushing into 2. So let's talk evens on 2. So with this sniper, actually that's more of a pushing into last type of deal. So maybe I'll talk about it then. So yeah, the pressure into last. You have a couple options. So you can be pressuring left side. And potentially, like, if this is trapped or this is trapped, you can spot that and clear that. You obviously won't be able to see if this is trapped. But you could knock those sticks or do whatever, even air dead it, you know. And have this trapped or whatever, you can potentially be pressuring this and spamming this. And playing to back out Shutter. This, of course, is for the soldier that is going to try and land there and kill you. And that's fine. A lot of the time, my team preferred to pressure right lobby more so. In which case, I was just the Shutter watcher. And Shutter is, of course, something you can pretty readily peek, but it's not something you can get a lot of reliable spam into. You can just be playing to deny their demo, I suppose. And I suppose the gun is spammable from up here, huh? Yeah, it would be. So maybe that's something to consider, actually. Not something I've really done much on Metal, but... and typically the gun is more, like, on this corner, so those stickies would actually miss. But I would not be surprised if you could... Yeah, you can get reliable spam on that gun. And this would actually be something that... Oh, did that bounce? I think that did. Yeah, I don't know. Something to maybe lab up. Not a terrible spam angle against a gun. But you could theoretically be pressuring right with your team and have a soldier watch Shutter, which then you can actually get direct pressure on the med or spam down the gun or do whatever. And you can also assist in pressuring the soldier off of red crate or the crate. Not so much this little shack, but yeah, it's just a matter of having all the doors watched and whether you want to be pressuring the door directly with your combo, or if you want to be watching the door. Similar to, you know, pressuring Cafe into Sunshine 2. You could be with your combo Cafe, or you could be watching Choke. It's just a matter of which door you or your pocket soldier would prefer, and just swapping. So yeah, that's the last pressure. And then counter sack, you have a couple of options. I do enjoy playing to hold Shutter and spot ramp room, and I often like to throw a sticky here, just so that, similar to actually Dungeon on the counter sack for Sunshine, second, because, you know, it just lets them know, like, yeah, I'm watching this, don't try and peek it. I suppose you could also actually have it trapped to just straight up kill that player rather than discourage them from peeking at all. But yeah, just playing to watch this stuff, and your combo with your pocket soldier are going to be on this corner, kind of baiting that exchange. I do like this because soldier is a better exchange class than demo. Let me turn my light on. I do like this kind of hold because soldier is a better exchange class than demo. So the exchange potential is a bit stronger. You're going to discourage them from peeking as hard. But yeah, you could switch it up and have your soldier watch that while you are playing lobby, because you can still output a lot of damage in lobby, and you still could potentially take an exchange. So it is, again, team preference and personal preference between the pocket soldier and the demo. Okay. So that's it for evens, I think, so we'll talk about pushing into last. One thing I'm a big fan of when it comes to staging the push before even entering lobby is if there isn't a sniper, I like to, as my guys are maybe capping 2 or doing whatever, just throw a couple of really charged sticks on this corner, just so that a sniper is not going to want to peek this, a soldier's not going to want to peek this, and maybe if he's scoped up just trying to peek it and doesn't see the sticks, then you might just get a kill. It's just something to do while there's nothing else to do, and helps decrease the risk of a sniper. Now, of course, if a sniper is holding that angle, and if you can't get anyone on them, then your combo can just rotate under the point to right lobby, whether through ramp or shutter, and then you have avoided the sniper. As far as doors to use into last, there's 3 main ones. Shutter's pretty bad, in my opinion, because it's basically the exact same door as main. But it's a shutter, so there can be sticks on it. The Uber could be a little messy versus main, much easier to bomb through. And as far as a main Uber goes, if they have like a pretty forward gun, sometimes your Uber can just get completely denied and the bomb kind of sucks. So you have to keep that in mind. We'll talk about right side next. Right side is a little bit of a dry door. You can take some space without using, but a lot of the time you're going to want to be using pretty early anyway. But if you maybe have a pick or something and think you can get a little bit of space and kind of diagnose the hole or whatever, I don't know. It's a fine door to be pushing through and potentially drying through. Now, kind of the bread and butter door is left. And this is not a door you bomb through, typically. You kind of just walk through. The gun is usually somewhere on the left side, whether that be in this corner or right there, or really anywhere. It can be anywhere. Yeah, you just play to take that out. And then as far as a cross goes, you need your Uber to be really, really long to be able to cross behind the point, in my opinion. And a lot of the time, I do prefer actually crossing in front of the point and ending on bridge, because I do like bridge more as a post Uber position than left. Left, there's just, it feels like there's less space to work with. And on bridge in this general area, you kind of get to control everything, and you know, it's a nice place to be in. So I do like to cross in front of the point to end bridge if my Uber is not long enough to cross behind the point. There are, of course, going to be some Ubers that are long enough that you get to cross behind the point and just like sweep everyone out, and oftentimes you're going to be catching players and corralling them like back here or whatnot in the process, which is great. You do have to look out for a pyro, because a pyro can completely stuff this door, and a pyro can actually like be playing up here, stuffing the Uber for a bit, dropping off so they don't even die, or like playing gun pyro or whatnot. Gun pyro is really, really good on this last, so you do have to look out for that, and that's why I think spotting is going to be kind of important. And if it's a team that does that regularly, then maybe consider like a dry push or something, or I don't know, maybe even using through main and just walking to take out the gun. Might be something to consider. But yeah, that's most of what you're looking for pushing with the Ubers. Now, as far as trapping off the point, you can have traps on the point itself, but you can also have traps on the entrances to the point, because the point's pretty contained, and pretty much every defender is either going to approach the point from here, or even try and stop the point from here, or approach and try and stop the point from here, and in some cases through window, right? So when it comes to trapping off players on the point, I actually like to trap this kind of thing off, and trap this kind of thing off, and in some cases even the window. Because, you know, if the player's capping, then this is just as good of a trap, and in fact even better than trapping the point itself, because someone can't just stand here and be safe from traps on the point and like hitting your scout with a 100 damage rocket or something. Same applies to this. You won't be able to like peek that corner with these sticks here. So that's generally something I like when it comes to trapping off this point, rather than just shooting the side of the point that the defenders are going to try and stop the cap from. You actually shoot the kind of edges of the geometry itself that lets into the cap region. So yeah, that's I think it for pushing last. I think if there's anything else, I don't think there is. So with that in mind, I think the last thing for us to do is talk about where to set traps up. All right, let's go back to our last for this. Okay. So, for disadd last traps, you have a few options. This is really nice, because for some reason teams like to milk through this door and then pop through this door, which I don't understand one bit, because it saves you like maybe a quarter of a second of the Uber, but runs the risk of dropping. And just from playing your disadd positioning, pretty much the second you see that scout, you just use, and basically every single time without fail, their medic is here and dying. So that can be quite nice. Some other stuff for more post-Uber positionings, this is quite nice, because this is just a place that players like to be or crossing through. Very easy to get a kill doing that. Likewise, something like this, or even this edge as well, is going to be nice for a player positioned here. Which is not an uncommon place for someone to be. Likewise, I am a fan of something like this. If their demo is going to bomb through main and land here and try and catch us, I just have that waiting for him. But those are the main ones for disadd last that I use. Of course, you could be trapping doorways themselves. Like, if a team likes to milk through left, then no reason not to trap it, for instance. But it's pretty simple stuff, I guess. I'm sure there's more you could use, but those are the main ones that I tend to use, and I tend to get value out of them. So yeah. As far as evens on last goes, there are some nice traps in lobby. So lobby is extremely trappable. Of course, you can be trapping this crate, which you have to be careful, because that can be, you can get spotted trapping it when they're capping a point, so they might just know about it. But very common for players to be like peeking this, doing whatever, or like even a scout to be on top of this, holding left, and that will kill all of them. Of course, you have to be kind of aggro to be spotting it, but this is not like particularly out of position. So that's nice. Of course, trapping the shutter, trapping doors, just trapping all these little pillars and whatnot is valuable. And this applies to both sides as well. I'll talk about that when I talk about when I get to their second. Likewise, in left lobby here, this is quite nice and quite common. Something that's not common but very nice is just trapping this. Seems very simple, but from here you're not going to see it, and from here you're not going to see it. So it's very easy to miss. And not an uncommon place for people to stand. Like if they peek shutter, they might just be backing up here, and boom, they're in that radius, which can be nice. I do see some demos actually trap above this shutter, out of like counter-sack pressure or something, and just spot it from back here. And a lot of the time you will just be able to get a pick immediately, because this is kind of an unconventional place for a demo to trap and spot. So that can be a valuable tool. Is this even... You know what? That is not... It's not great, but it's really not too shabby. I don't know when you would really set that or use it. I mean, I suppose if it's like disadd 2 and you know the other team's approaching alley, you might be able to set that up before backing up. Never used it, never tried it, but I see how it could be useful. And that would probably be fantastic with like a bait trap somewhere. That whatever. I'm waffling. What else? What else? I think that's pretty much it for even Uber's traps. Oh, you can be trapping like a high bomb here if you'd like. Because it's not uncommon for a soldier to be trying to bomb off of this for a high bomb. But yeah. Oh, and I also like trapping this as well if I'm expecting an exchange. Because a lot of scouts will just run around this corner instantly in those exchange timings. But yeah. So now let's talk about traps on 2. And of course every little doorway and just random thing in lobby is trappable. Okay, so on 2. There's some nice traps in house. Kind of hard to spot. But you can be trapping all sorts of things. You can be trapping the pack, just any random doorway. I mean, you can even be trapping like inside this. This will never ever in a million years get cleared, by the way. But it's difficult to spot, so it's going to be tough to play around. But yeah, all this stuff is trappable. Something like this is quite decent. For an even Uber situation, you can be setting it closer to that. You can be trapping this. Just all sorts of random stuff in the ceiling. Is all nice in house, but most of this stuff, especially like everything to the left of this guy, is going to be more in blind debt territory. I suppose stuff on like the pack or whatnot, you can just be playing to spot here if it's like a transition off of mid and you haven't really set up for the second hold yet. But yeah, a lot of it is more blind debt territory. And some of it is like disad stuff also. As far as alley goes, this is just fantastic. But it's tough because you have to go really out of your way to set it. And it's very easy for you to get spotted because if, you know, you try and set this up because it's even Ubers or disad on 2 and the other team just took mid, they might already be moving towards alley and they're likely wanting to go alley. And if you get spotted at all here, then this is going to get cleared because they're just going to suspect it. But if you get a nice timing to put it up, then you can be spotting it if you spot the cross, or your teammate can be spotting it if they spot the cross. And spotting the cross is a really important thing to do because you know pretty much with certainty that no one is alley if no one crosses. Now, of course, you can, as a scout or soldier, or I suppose demo, just jump over the spot and get to alley unspotted, but you know that the combo and like the team at large is not over there, which is the actual important thing for this. Now you do have to be careful if you're just sitting here spotting the cross, then yeah, they're gonna suspect that it might be trapped, but still valuable. Likewise, there's just all sorts of little things you can trap in alley. Outside of that, and as far as disad stuff in alley goes, I mean, it's just not great, honestly, because pretty much everything sticks out to some extent, and is very easy to spot. These are all kind of disad traps that I will like to set, but you can see that kind of all of them, like this is obviously sticking out. You just hug this wide, and if there's any sticks in this area, you're obviously going to see them because they just won't even be like hidden. Although that makes me hold the phone just a moment. Like something like this. It's not great. No, it's not great. Thought I was cooking for a second. No. So basically this is the only thing that can be trapped up until past that point, which this can be trapped. And again, if you weren't seeing that, always gonna stick out at least a little bit. And then once you get past here, you can oftentimes see sticks here. I suppose you wouldn't be able to see one here. But then you just have to clear traps by the forwards. And yeah, this is why I said like the disads, they're the traps and stuff in alley are generally bad. All very visible. And yeah, all really not great for disad, but you kind of have to set them anyway and just hope. Now in evens, trapping the high bomb is not a bad idea at all. And if you can do it well enough in advance, then yeah, you might just be able to ruin their first sack, ruin a bunch of time for them, and just give you a free counter sack, which is always a nice advantage to have. I suppose you could be trapping underpass if you really wanted. More of like a hard read kind of trap. But every once in a while, it's quite nice. And it's not something that players are going to expect or necessarily clear, so it can be a nice little mix-up. And of course, just trapping doorways is always going to be good. Okay, I think that's it for what I can think about on second. So let us move on to mid. So, mid, there are some decent things to point out. For starters, this is not a terrible trap. For players that are trying to pressure or potentially push through house. Trapping the point is not bad, because of course that's just not going to be seen from a certain angle, and then this is not going to be seen from another certain angle. And yeah, just based on the cap time, you know if someone walked on the point. Could be nice for kind of a really easy to set trap that you just play in the blind at. Something like this is really nice because most players will walk up here. This is very common though, so it will get clear a lot of the time, but if it doesn't and a demo just walks past his scout, then yeah, it's a free pick. Any door is nice to trap. These are nice to trap. This is nice to trap. This is nice to trap as well. Again, just doors are good. And Valley has some good ones. So I'm not even opposed to trapping this. It seems so visible, of course, when you're just approaching it like this. But the way most scouts route is actually like through underpass, which you don't see it. You clear traps here, which this can be trapped as well, and that's quite nice. And then you walk up here. You're going to be looking at the other team and looking out for a high bomb. And then they walk up here. And some scouts are going to be hesitant to get on this rock. Because, look at this guy. Boom. Completely invisible. If you set this well, just get familiar with the actual clipping of this rock and the collision. And yeah, you can set a completely invisible trap where the only way to actually clear it is to just assume it's there or knock it with explosives. And yeah, if a scout is up here, that's a free kill. So this is really nice. This is a nice little, not necessarily backup, but just, what is this? Nah, that's going to be trash. Not necessarily backup, but just kind of counter to scouts that are baiting that really hard. And also the pack. The pack is so easy to trap from anywhere because as long as it lands on that back wall, it basically serves the same purpose. Players are going to want to come up here and go to the pack, and it's usually easy since it's a little out of the way from the normal route up to the point. It's going to be very easy to tell when someone's trying to go to the pack. So that's fantastic. Gets a lot of kills. This is similar to the Snakewater second pack that I like to trap a lot. Basically, every single time a team pushes into mid, someone's going to want to get a pack here, whether it be the ammo or the health. And if you get the timing right and you get to actually spot that, boom, that's just a free kill. So yeah, a lot of good stuff for Valley here. Okay, and this can be trapped as well. Like, just other spots of the rock are going to be kind of hard to see. And can get a pick. So, yeah, a lot of good stuff. Okay, let us talk now about second. So, on second, of course, trapping the shutter is good. Just trapping the doors is good. And there's a lot of good stuff in lobby if you find your route suits it. So even like trapping the back of this box, that stick is sticking out, of course, isn't necessarily going to get spotted and will be really good. And just all these random little beams and whatnot. Oh, I'm saying it again. All this stuff can be trapped and it's all very solid. This is good as well. And I'm a big fan of trapping up the pack, actually, because it's not uncommon for someone to want to route to... I'm bumping into stuff. It's not uncommon for someone to want to route into the pack. If they just take a little bit of spam, especially medics, which are important things to kill. And it's not something you're going to really expect to be trapped, because it's not trapped very often. Now, you have to be careful about spotting something like that, because... if you're committed out to here, for example, spotting it, which is not a horrible place to be, if the other if the combo is just plain to pop through, you're just caught. So I would really only be playing this if you know that they're left lobby and pressuring it, and then you get to spot if someone's going to that pack and potentially get that kill. Okay, and there's probably stuff right lobby. I'm not super opposed to, in like a counter sack situation, if you're already right lobby, for instance, just holding a trap shutter and just kind of lingering for a bit, right? Because all you have to really do, the doors you have to spot in counter sack are ramp room and shutter. And if you're standing here, you are still spotting those. No one's getting through. So yeah, maybe someone just lazily peeks shutter and you get a pick or something. That can be valuable. You just have to look out for like a potential player catches onto that and just wraps you around this corner and kills you. And of course you have to look out for like someone just bombing you, but a lot of the time it's not too bad. I wouldn't do it every single time, but it can be nice to just kind of linger there for a moment, similar to like gully wash last, when you're holding last. And if you have the traps on baby door and shutter from the counter sack, then you might just linger for a little bit and spot them, because someone might get caught slipping trying to peek them and like enter lobby. Okay, is there anything else I can think of as far as traps go? 1, 2. Not really. And then the other team's last, you're not really going to be trapping stuff. Obviously like trapping the point and whatnot, but they're not deliberate pick traps like I'm kind of talking about here. So yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for Metalworks. Kind of a divisive map for demo, because a lot of the holds you are just completely useless, it feels like. But you can also just be really valuable. So it's a weird map that a lot of newer demos struggle with. And hopefully this was a good resource to start off on the right foot. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed, and catch you next time.